What if playing the harp felt easier, the way you thought it would be, not because you practiced more, but because you finally understood what was getting in your way? I'm Anne Sullivan, and welcome to Practicing Harp Happiness. Here, we tackle the real challenges harpists struggle with: the sticky passages, the tricky fingerings, prepping for performance, and all the ingredients that go into making music sound the way you want it to. I've studied with world-class harpists, taught at a top conservatory for 20 years, and I love playing the harp. But what I love just as much is breaking down the real challenges harpists face and turning them into clear step-by-step solutions, the same ones I teach my students and use myself. So if you're ready to play the music you love with more confidence, clarity, and joy, you're in the right place. So let's get started. Welcome to the show. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but there's something that happens when you realize that you have to shift your understanding of someone. It's a little unsettling, as if that person belonged in one little box in your mind, and now you find out it's been the wrong box all along, and in fact, they don't really belong in a box at all. Your appreciation of that person takes on new meaning, and your friendship finds a new level. I found that kind of new level with my good friend and esteemed colleague, Dr. Louis Anthony deLise, who is my guest on today's show. Louis and I became acquainted because we were both part of the freelance musical circles in Philadelphia, where I knew him as a percussionist. I didn't discover that his real metier was composing until much more recently, and not only has that deepened our friendship, but it has brought a lot of new and wonderful music into my life, for which I am very grateful. Louis is one of my collaborators on the Chrysalis Music Workshop event for flutists, harpists, and composers that is happening this September in New Jersey. So I thought this was the perfect moment to introduce him and his music to you. And as you listen to our conversation, I particularly want you to listen for the words that he uses as he describes composing and composers and musicians. Words like adventure, experiment, game, and heart. You have heard me use these kinds of words often, so I know you'll understand why I value my work and my collaboration with him so highly. And before we get started, I thought I'd play just a little snippet of one of his compositions for flute and harp. This is the title track, a portion of the title track from the album To Dance With You. So this is all music by Louis Anthony deLise, and I recorded this with the flutist John McMurtry. So this is To Dance With You. That was a little bit of To Dance With You, and now on to my conversation with Louis Anthony deLise. Louis, welcome. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me. As I was mentioning just a moment ago in the introduction, it's such a pleasure for me to talk to you. I'm used to talking to you as a friend, but to get to speak with you as a person talking to a composer, and just sort of explore a little bit more of your professional life here together on the podcast. I'm excited to do that. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Anne. Thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to speak with you on this professional level, too. It's nice not to be just saying, Hey, Ann, is this playable?
Oh, yeah. Well, and that does bring up a really important topic and one that is a heavy one for a lot of harpists because, as you can imagine, perhaps more than other instrumentalists, I don't know, we get so many pieces of music put in front of us by composers who haven't written for harp before. Now, of course, you're experienced at writing for harp, but I have gotten so many fledgling composers with their first harp composition when I have to say, I can't do that. And trying to explain the harp sensibility is a little bit difficult.
Right. Well, there are obvious things, the 47 strings and all that stuff. But lots of people don't remember that there are only four fingers on each hand involved in this harp
Right.
business. And I think there's a real basic issue. The basic issue probably is that the music for harp in a general way looks a lot like piano music. Lots of people starting out just think, oh, well, it's, you're just like you're writing for piano, but no, it's not. So, that's it. And having someone like you, a great player,
Oh, thank
say,
you.
well, you know what? This isn't going to work exactly, because I only have these eight fingers to use and whatever. Yeah. And too many pedal changes. Pedal changes are probably the biggest bugaboo, you know,
Yeah.
for somebody who doesn't play the instrument. It's hard
Oh,
to,
trust me, they're a bugaboo for people who do as well. They're they're always the consideration. Just
yeah.
it's another dimension to have to work around. It's tough.
It really is. It really is. And it's an amazing thing to watch you work.
And sometimes it works better than others, I must say.
Well,
But
well,
I, I always appreciate from as a performer, I appreciate being able to work with a composer and say, I, I kind of get where you're going, but can we get there a different way? And dealing with the enharmonics, the being able and
right,
sometimes needing to rewrite notes, okay, I know that looks like a C natural, but if I can play it as a B sharp, it's going to work so much better, or the other way around. And
yeah,
of course, then there's the lever harp thing, because you and I have done a lot together working to make some of the pieces that you've written for harp playable on lever harp. And that's a completely different dimension, too.
right, right. And for me, as a theory guy, as a harmony guy, I spell things the way I'm thinking about them. So, a G chord with a flatted ninth has an A flat in it, but for you, it might, that's a bad example probably, but for you, maybe that A flat wants to be a G sharp. And it doesn't compute with me to write it as a G sharp because it's not, it's an A flat. It's a whole different.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as harpists, we always have two uh, two levels of thought about it. One is
Yeah.
that if we see it the way it's supposed to be, to use your example, which as you said isn't exactly the right one, because we can't do a G natural and a G sharp at the
Right.
same time. So,
Right.
but let's just take that and say, well, if the A flat is what makes sense in the chord, we like to see that too, because it helps
Sure.
us recognize the chord as what it's supposed to be.
Because
And
you and hear that way too, right? You see
sure,
the
and
music and you hear it as that.
it's hearing it and it's also seeing it because
Yeah.
we are always looking for shapes and for how those things
Right.
are okay, we can see the chord at a glance,
Right.
and it's not usually a problem for us to just quickly indicate with a circle or some other marking that okay, that note may look like an A flat, but we're going to play it as something else. But there are sometimes difficulties in extended passages where you think, well, I that's just not going to work, and there are too many strings that I'm playing on wrong notes, and I need it written enharmonically in a way that makes no sense visually or from a harmonic perspective,
Right.
but it's so much easier to read, to
Right.
learn, and to play that's what I'm working with.
Yeah, there's a functional level, right?
Right, right.
Right.
Thank you for that word. Yes, functional level. Yeah, no, that's good. Well, tell me a little bit about your own journey because when I first met you a bazillion years ago, not that we're that old, but I knew you
Thir-
as a
thir-
percussionist.
39, I think
Yeah,
we're both
that's
30.
right, 39. Yeah. How'd you make that journey? Were you always composing?
Yeah, I think I was. I've always been making up stuff at the piano and writing. I started writing music or trying to write music at a very early age. I didn't know I was composing, but I started. I wanted to be a drummer. Like one of my uncles was a semi professional drummer who toured the country playing in jazz bands and stuff. And I wanted to be a drummer like my uncle Rocky. He was slick.
Ooh.
And he was a really good player. He had great sensibilities. I wanted to be like Uncle Rocky and play drums. Well, I took drum lessons and I did. I learned how to play drum set, and it was a really cool thing. But there was a piano in the house because my sister was an erstwhile pianist or piano student anyway.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I seemed to have had this facility at the keyboard naturally. And I started kind of teaching myself about the piano in a very informal kind of way. And eventually, my drum teacher, is a great guy named Kenny Lawrence, who was a kind of a touring drum, I think they called them territorial bands at that time. He was a very learned musician and taught me some things about harmony. Well, he taught me enough so that I could read chord changes. I could read chord symbols. And my older brother was an erstwhile saxophonist who brought home fake books.
Ah,
You know about fake books. And I began at my at the family piano putting the fake books up and just reading through these tunes, and I could do that. And that's kind of how I began. At the same time, I was very taken by kind of big band jazz, Stan Kenton and Duke Ellington and Henry, and really, I loved Henry Mancini's writing.
right.
Uh, and I thought, wow, man, that's really cool. Some of the guys in the Stan Kenton band not only play the instruments, but they write arrangements for the band. And Maynard Ferguson's band, same thing. And I thought, wow, that would really be a neat thing to do. So I got into by high school. I had my own band and wrote for my horn band. I had trumpet, sax, trombone kind of thing, and I wrote arrangements for that and for the singers and the band. So that was the beginning. That was it. Self-taught piano, and then eventually I did study piano too. But much later, as a late teen, you know. So, did I answer your question? I don't know. I seem to have gone off in three different tangents, but that's kind of like my professional life. It's like in three or four different tangents. So,
Well, and you're still working in different worlds now. I mean, maybe not so much the percussion, but you compose, you arrange, you produce, and you're playing as well. So, I mean, how as musicians, we all do a lot of things, right?
we did, I
But
think.
and I think part of it is because we're interested in a lot of things. Part of it, at least in some, places, sometimes in our life, part it's because, well, we just need to go where the work is. How would you describe your work these days? What do you spend your time doing?
Well, I consider myself a professional composer. So at this stage of the game, I'm not arranging or producing records for other people so very much. I'm now working, creating my own music. I very fortunately have relationships with a couple publishing companies who put the music out in print. So that's me. That's what I do. At the same time, I love the recording process. I was bitten by the recording bug. Excuse me. I was bitten by the recording bug at a very early age, and I just love that experience of working in the studio and then hearing what I created come back through those monitors. It's just, I mean, I can remember the first time I did that with my parents' old Silvertone stereo in the living room, the family living room, and coming home with this record that I had made in a big studio in Philadelphia with, a string section and horns and this and that. Put it on, and I have goosebumps thinking about it. It's like, holy moly, I did that. Wow, that's really cool. But that's never gone away. That still is. So I love recording. So yes, I'm a professional composer, but I'm also producing recordings in my studio of generally of my own music at this point.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Well, and tell me about your teaching, because I know you work with composers and help them. And of course, we have our Chrysalis Music Workshop coming
oh,
up in September, and
yeah,
you're going to be working with composers and flutists and harpists in that
yeah.
setting. And so tell me a little bit about your teaching philosophy and how you work with composers.
Well, yes, I think what we've set up for September is amazingly exciting to me. A great opportunity for us as teachers. I mean, I know you know this, but as teachers, we get so much out of teaching. Don't tell the students; it's a secret.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love teaching. I was an adjunct lecturer at Temple University's Boyer College of Music for a number of years, and worked in the composition department and also sometimes in the jazz studies department. My philosophy of teaching always to be a guide, to point a direction that seems to be one of several directions, maybe. Um, and to work with the student to achieve their goals. What is it that they want to achieve, and to share with them whatever knowledge I can, to help them achieve their goals. That's really what it's all about for me. I think teaching.
I'm thinking that working with a composer has sort of an extra soft area to it in that you're dealing with something that is created inside. I mean, there's so much about playing the harp that is, well, we've got to do this technique thing. We have to figure out how you can play that measure. And there's a lot of musicianship that goes into that. But when you're talking about somebody's composition, they come in there, they've got this idea, and you can't just say, well, we're going to put that aside for now. Let's do this. I mean, this is it's part of their soul. They've just put on the table. That
Right,
might be, it
right.
seems different to me.
Well, I think it is different. I think I think it does come in from inside, and it is, it's like a child. Here's
Yeah.
this thing that we're creating. Um, yeah, I think it's all about guiding, and maybe as a more mature musician, maybe we can see the potential of something that the student composer has created. And that idea of guiding. Well, have you thought about doing this? Or I wonder what would happen. I wonder what would happen if you did this.
Hmm.
Where would it go? So that things are, the guidance is usually in the expressed in the sense of wonder. I wonder what,
Right.
because a
Okay.
lot of composing, I think, is kind of like, I don't want to say it's like a game, but yeah, it's kind of like a game. You're creating stuff. You're creating music. Uh,
Yeah.
you're creating stuff out of thin air, and um, yeah, it is sometimes. There's a playful nature about it. I think
Hmm.
for me.
Would the phrase "what if" come into play here? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
well, let's see what if.
What
What
if?
if you did this? What if?
Right. What if
Yeah.
you? What if we took this way? We went down this road, and okay, well then we can do that. But what if we did this? Well, what if you did neither of those, but you did some third thing? Yeah, I think absolutely, it's all about what if. Absolutely. Now, I think also today uh, there are different kinds of composers. I suppose this has been the case always, but there are composers who know lots of stuff about theory and harmony, different styles of music and musical traditions, and lots of things about orchestration and instruments and stuff. And I think there are also some very, very creative and talented folks who don't have that basic information, that technical stuff that we bother to learn, but who have an innate musical, and let's call it a melodic gift, or a gift for melody. Those are folks who sometimes will not have the technical capabilities to notate stuff. The notation is a difficult thing, as we know, right?
Right.
But they might have it together to sing a tune or whatever as a starting point, and we'll work then with another musician to flesh that out, to help develop that. I think those folks are composing too. That's an equally important thing, and maybe those folks eventually learn some of those other technical things, those foundational things of theory and writing. But you know, that's a good place to be too. So I guess what I'm getting at is that as that guide, composer, teacher person, I think we meet the student where she or he is, and try to help them get further along to where they want to be.
So thinking about those different places that composers or would-be composers, or I really want to be a composer, but I'm not yet kind of people.
Right.
If somebody came to a workshop with you, like the Chrysalis workshop, would they be able to say, well, I have these ideas, but I have no idea where to start? Is this something that you'd be able to work with in the course of a weekend workshop like that?
Well, I think so. Yeah, I know so. We could take that aspiring composer from that place A to place B, and have some kind of chrysalis like growth happen.
I know that there are musicians I have spoken with who have that bug to compose. I really want to play my own music. I want to do my own thing, but they have no clue how to get started, or they're a little bit hesitant about trying to put something together. At the
Well,
same time, they really want to take it to that next step.
well, here's the secret. I think we all do it for ourselves. I think
Ah.
I think we especially start that way. We especially start noodling around on the
Mhm.
keyboard or on the harp, and yeah, that's a great beginning spot.
What you said ties in so well with my own thoughts. I mean, the podcast here is called Practicing Harp Happiness, and what harp happiness is, in my definition, is that it's being able to play the harp and the music that you want the way you want. And it is a personal thing. It's a a search for personal satisfaction and fulfillment through, in my case, through playing the harp. But I can see equally where that would apply to composition or flute
Sure.
playing or anything
And
else.
absolutely. And we live in this time where there are amazing tools for aspiring composers. So, a composer does not have to be the person who sits with a pen and a piece of paper and
Yeah.
writes. A composer can be a person who records into a recording machine, and then plays back and listens to it and learns from that, and maybe amplifies that. Amplify in the sense of stretching it out or
Expand. Mhm.
expanding. Yes. um, so we have those tools. We have all the MIDI equipment stuff that will translate that noodling around at a keyboard into actual notation. This is a wonderful time to live for the aspiring creative person.
Yeah, yeah. And how wonderful that you don't have to know any of those things in order to get started.
Well, no, you don't have to do that. You don't have to know anything about MIDI or notation. You can just ramble. It's about a beginning, a middle, and an end, and an idea. So I think when at least when I sit to compose something, it starts with, oh, gee whiz, what is it I want to make? You have a blank piece of paper, and you start creating rules for yourself. Rules for this game of composing. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I kind of want it to be for I want it to be a trio. I want it to be for flute, bassoon, and I don't know, ophicleide.
There you go.
Well, it's an important instrument that's not played. You know, so now I've created at least that set of rules. Okay, well, what's my next idea? Well, I want it to be, harmonically similar to other stuff I've heard and I can sing. I want it to be tonal, as we might say. So I want it to operate
Mhm.
in kind of a major or a minor key. Well, which one? I don't know. Let's start out in a minor key, and then maybe later on it'll get to be major when it grows up. So we're creating parameters within which to work, and then another parameter might be, well, I want it to be 2 minutes long, or I want this section to be 16 measures, or, what have you.
Mhm.
What time signature? I want it to be in 5/8 because I really liked that Dave Brubeck tune from years ago that Paul Desmond actually wrote, but that's another story.
Okay.
So I want it to be in 5/8. Okay, cool. So now I have these rules for my composition, and I think that's a good way to start. And if you notice what I'm doing is I'm restricting things as
Yes.
I go.
Yeah.
Starting with that big blank piece of paper, which is frightening in and of itself because it could be so many different things. But now I'm limiting what it can be to. It's going to be in 5/8. It's going to be tonal. It's going to be for ophicleide, flute, and bassoon,
Hmm.
and
In
etc.
minor, I think you said.
In minor, yes, in minor to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But
So
it will end in major. Well, this reminds me of one of those choose your own adventure books where it's like, well, okay, I'm going to make this choice and that determines my next step.
yes, exactly, and isn't that what we've done as musicians all our
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, speaking of what we have done as musicians, tell me what you're working on right now. What projects are you working on that you're excited about?
I happen to be working on a piece for flute and harp.
Really?
Really, and I have a flutist and a harpist in mind to
Do
play
you
this.
really?
Yeah,
Anybody I know?
uh, no, I don't think so. I think it's somebody you know very well, actually. Some bodies you know very well. Um, I just finished working on a very large piece for, gosh golly, for harp. Believe it or not. Uh, and I decided to have a little musical, what I call a musical sorbet, sorbet between courses of a fancy meal, something
Yes.
to cleanse the palate, So
Yes.
I decided to write a set of songs without words. And I decided to make them in a very kind of pop song, American, kind of in the style of the American songbook,
Hmm.
in a general kind of way. So that's what I'm working on. A set of, I think it'll be four. uh, Maybe by the end of this podcast, it'll be five. I don't know, but four songs without words for flute and harp. So that's what I'm doing
Okay. Yeah.
presently, and that's because the next thing I have to do is a large piece that I have in mind for clarinet and string orchestra.
Oh,
And
how
the string
exciting.
orchestra will be, yeah, it'll be strings, string section, probably harp and percussion.
Ooh, yeah.
So there you go.
Well, that I look forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah, you have that big work you've done for solo harp, and I'll tell you that for me that is now a work in progress. So, and I can attest that it is a big work. In fact, I have to tell you, I was mentioning this to a few of my students the other day, and they had been talking about practicing and about things being hard, and I said, well. Let me tell you, I said, this is how my practicing is going right now. And I have to tell you that this is how I'm working on this because this is so hard. And one of them said, I am so relieved to hear you talk about something being hard for you because I thought everything was easy. I said, "Oh no." Oh no. But I am loving this piece more
Well,
every hour I put into it.
oh,
So
well,
I'm
thank you.
really
And,
excited about it, but oh my
and
goodness, that third movement is fun to play.
boy, that is a heck of a euphemism there. And fun to play.
But it
Yeah,
is it or
it,
it will be
it
right
will be.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now I'm sweating bullets, but that's okay. It
Well, no, no. So here I am as the composer of this piece. That
mhm.
my, I mean, how flattering is it that you would put your heart and your time into learning this? It's, it's such an honor. I mean, it really is. It's a real honor for composers.
It's a privilege and an honor for me too because I have this sense of partnering on this piece. I mean,
Oh
I
yeah,
you gave me so many opportunities along the way to give feedback, and when I could say, yes, this works, no, this doesn't work,
yeah,
and as we were
yeah.
talking about the enharmonics before, I was remembering one passage in one of those pieces, and I don't even remember which one, where I said, no, you see, I have to work around it this way, and it's just, it's just
Right,
I need a B, not a C. There, it was a
right,
you'd written a C flat. It's like, no, I can't do the C flat. I need to be natural. The process of working with you on that and saying, okay, I can't just come back to you and say, no, I'm sorry, that's too hard. That doesn't work. It's really my job to figure out how it can work. And if it really can't work, then to show you what's happening and we can work together as we have in the past to say, well, okay, you don't want to change it this way, but I can't play it that way. So how, what works with your conception of the piece that I actually can do?
right, right. And as a composer, you're just reminding me of many situations like this where, uh, especially, I guess, especially in the recording studio and conducting arrangements I've written, where an instrumentalist might say, "Well, have you thought about this?" Blah 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 blah, whatever it is, Uh, and as the composer or the arranger in that case, you would be a fool not to listen to the musician because oftentimes they have great ideas. And a smart composer is going to be a malleable one. There are a flexible one. There are many different solutions to any given issue. But the wise composer, arranger, conductor person is going to be the person who at least listens to what the musician player has, the expert in their particular field has to say. Now, they may not take that suggestion, and that's totally okay too. Because I do think that uh, I read this book by a man named Roger von Ock years ago, who was a psychologist or psychiatrist who studied the creative act, and he determined that there were these different stages to the creative process, and that a creative person wears these various hats during these different stages. So at the beginning, one wears the hat of the explorer, and one explores various possibilities. And then one is let's call it the builder. I forget exactly all his different stages. And, you assemble this stuff, and we do this as composers, as musicians learning
Mhm.
pieces, what have you. And then at another stage, you're the warrior for your idea.
Yeah, okay.
And getting stuck in any one of those stages um, will just kill the creative process. It'll stop it. So if you and we've all seen people like this who explore. They wear the hat of the explorer and they just keep tinkering with things and exploring, and so on and so forth. And if you are at that stage as a composer, uh, where you're the warrior for your idea, but you're not at all flexible to
Ah,
understand that there may be other ideas, you're not going to get very far, I guess. So anyway,
Well, it's interesting, and it's interesting to think how those same ideas apply to performing musicians, or and I don't just mean performing on a stage, but somebody who's
yeah,
playing music, because I think lots of times we aren't encouraged to think of ourselves as being creative and to think of um, practicing music in order to play it as a creative process. I believe that it is,
oh, I think so.
but I'm not always able to convey that very clearly to my students in a way that they actually believe. But it is, and I love that framework. I think that the fun of playing a piece is exploring what it could be, deciding even at the beginning of your learning of a piece, preliminarily deciding anyway, with the right to change your mind later on, what the thing is going to be when it grows up. When you can really play it and when it becomes a part of you, what do you want it to say? What is it going to mean? What is it going to communicate to somebody else? That's how I would
And
talk about it.
and what I'm taking from what you're saying,
Mhm.
what I hear you saying is that the teacher is guiding that student to learn how to connect to their heart.
That's the way I always loved to teach. Thank you, Lewis, my friend, for talking to me today. And there's so much that you shared that is going to, I think, open the eyes of a lot of instrumentalists to what really goes on with composers. And hopefully, for those composers who are listening, it will encourage them to come and work with us at Chrysalis. Hopefully, for any instrumentalists who have felt that composition bug but been hesitant to get started, this is going to give them a path in and a way to at least test the water here and see what it's like. So
Yeah,
just thank you, and thank you for your music.
it's been great speaking with you, Anne. Thank you
Well, same
for
here.
this
Thank you
opportunity.
very much. Yep. Okay.
I've enjoyed it.
It's always so wonderful to talk with friends, and particularly when you get to talk music with friends. I mean, that's something I really love, and I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. There's so much richness in there, and you can just feel the energy and the possibility, that creation of music, that exploration of the collaboration between the composer and the performer. There's so much possibility there, and it's so much fun. So I hope that feeling came across, and perhaps you're excited about the idea of collaborations like that, in which case I would encourage you to register for the Chrysalis Music Workshop, and you get to work with both of us and with my flutist friend and longtime duo partner, Joan Marsh. And that will be just the most fun event. I'm really looking forward to that. I do want to mention that if you are interested in hearing more of Lewis's music, I've included in the show notes a link to his page on SoundCloud. I mean, you can find his music everywhere, but SoundCloud is a really great way to listen to a lot of the music that he has written, and you'll be able to hear the tracks from the To Dance With You CD as well. And if you're interested in playing any of his music, I've included a link particularly to the volume that To Dance With You came from. These were miniature pieces that Joan and I were just privileged to have Lou write for us, and they're published in 4 volumes. To Dance With You, that particular piece is in the 4th volume in the set, which is called Celebrations, and I've put a link to that in the show notes. Now, next week on the podcast, I'll be talking about creativity in music. We're going to be talking a little bit more about making your music your own. So that's going to be really important. And of course, as always, it's important to remember that every day is a day you can add more harp happiness to the universe, to your world, and to your spirit. And all you have to do is play. Now, as a special bonus here at the end of the show, I'd like to play one more track for you from the To Dance With You album. This is the last track, and it's also in the sheet music collection that I linked to in the show notes, Celebrations, and it's called A Time for Peace. And there's always time for peace in this world. So I hope you enjoy this, and I look forward to seeing you right here on the podcast next week.